So hi everyone, welcome. And on today's video, I thought we'd take a little tour of my studio as it is at this point in time and talk a little bit about what's happening next with me and doing some music out in the world. But first, let's take a look at this. On my YouTube channel, you will find a variety of video products, including my arts and entertainment video podcast, Other Stages. Other Stages features music, stories, and thoughtful conversations with guests from across the entertainment spectrum. Also on YouTube, you will find my music videos that feature my original work and the classical repertoire. The Organ Technology series explores the fascinating ways in which organs have been built through history. You can sponsor my YouTube channel by joining me on Patreon, where you will receive exclusive Patreon-only content as a thank you for your support. You can also support my work at Venmo and PayPal, and you will always find these links in the video descriptions. My YouTube channel is not monetized and does not receive any financial support from advertisers. So just like PBS, I rely on people like you. Thanks. So when you first enter my studio, there's this back room. This was actually the original back porch to the house, and it was enclosed by somebody much earlier. And so I use this as kind of my office. My computer's in here. All of this gear here is really the Porta organ, and as it exists right now, I've talked about this setup before. And of course I have some sound processing gear, and also have some listening stuff. I mean, there's a turntable there, and the computer of course has a DVD drive. My music library is here, and my vinyl record collection is here, plus my CD collection is here. And then we head on out to the next room, and this was originally the carport in this house. I'll turn that fan off. And we have several organs out here. We have the Franken organ. This has been set aside, and I'm going to talk all about what's going on with each of these instruments in a moment. Next we have my Hammond Model A from the very first year of production. It's hard to get some good camera angles in here so you can see the whole thing. And then of course, if you've been watching my Organ Technology series, you've been hearing a lot about this instrument. This is my Rogers 33E theater organ. And then of course, if we take a step back, we see the big Johannes 4 manual instrument that has been cutely dubbed the really, really big organ. So let me put the camera on a tripod and we'll talk a little bit about each of these instruments. So I've really wanted to be a touring concert musician my whole life, and I have worked toward that in different ways over the years, and it's always seems to not quite happen for one reason or the other. I mean, this goes back to my rock band days. I did do a little touring when I was back then in the rock band thing, but you know, mostly just up and down the Central Valley here at different nightclubs with a couple of different bands. I got to audition for an up-and-coming act, and they were getting ready to do their second album, and they were making some staff changes within the group, and the audition went extremely well. They got into some legal trouble that I won't get into, and so that didn't happen. And but I've always had my eye on being able to do what I do in public at different venues. More recently, of course, I got into the fringe show thing, and I've kind of developed my own kind of lecture recital format that's kind of interesting. I do a show about the organist Virgil Fox, and that got to go to the Edinburgh Festival, the biggest arts festival in the world, at least in movie form, and I have done it at the local Fringe Festival, and I would love to take that show out and do it as a college lecture, that kind of thing. And that's kind of getting closer and more possible. I've made inroads through the Fisk Planetarium, and we're negotiating a whole big thing where I'm going to come and play my original music to a big elaborate planetarium show. And it's also going to involve me giving a lecture to the music department and all of that. And so that's kind of going to finally get my foot in the door, at least in that avenue. Now this here, what we're looking at, kind of stuffed here, is what's called the Franken organ, and I've talked quite a bit about this on past videos. I decided to call it the Franken organ because it's kind of fun and because it's made entirely out of discarded organ parts. And so, you know, Franken organ seemed like a logical name. The idea behind this is that this would be a controller for virtual organ software. So a dedicated computer would have to be added to it. At this point, we're kind of at that phase where we'd have to get the computer in, test out all the MIDI gear, and do all of that in order to make this into something that would hopefully be able to tour. But this would really be more for me to play classical repertoire, which, if I'm doing the show about Virgil Fox, that's certainly going to be what we would need to do. It would also be able to play theater organ repertoire, and I have a show I'm trying to develop about Robert Hope Jones, the inventor of the theater organ. And so again, this would be an excellent platform for this. But the direction that I'm going with the Fisk Planetarium is around my original ambient style music, and that involves something closer to the rig you saw in the other room. And so I've kind of had to make the development of that rig into a fully fleshed out live performance platform really my priority, because coming up in January of next year, I've got to be able to load up a rig into the minivan, drive somewhere, and put on a show. And it's going to be a show of my original music, and so I'm kind of having to be focused on that for now. And then hopefully we'll get back to the Franken organ at that point. Now this room is not really a very big space, and it's very much unfinished. This is what was the carport in our home. There's a extension to this carport leading out front, and then I put in this partition. The walls need to be finished, the ceiling needs to be finished. I've made some progress on the attic ventilation that has to go into this space, but I am using it as my practice studio. It's hot in the summer and cold in the winter, but I make do with fans and space heaters and just bundling up in the winter and getting down to a t-shirt in the summer. This behind me is my Rogers 33E. I acquired this from an old friend of mine, Dave Marino, and I've set it up here. If you've been following my organ technology videos, as I said, this instrument is being featured pretty prominently because we've been doing some repair work, we've been making some modifications, and all of that is chronicled in those organ technology videos, which you can check out and see what's going on with this. This is very much a theater organ platform for sure. This is an instrument designed back in the late 60s to imitate theater pipe organs. And of course we have our foundation to all theater organs, the tibia. Let's open it up. And it's on a 2-speed Leslie, which I really has some of the classic theater organ sounds on it, very bright buzzy strings. A voice very unique to the theater organ, the canura. Tuba. And the very bright post horn. And when you put it all together, it does have that classic theater organ vibe to it. And of course that sound is kind of special to me. That's the sound I fell in love with back in 1977 when I was first introduced to the organ, and I've told that story a bunch of times. Now we've made some interesting modifications to this instrument to kind of open its sound up and make it a little more rich, and I'll throw some still shots so you can see some of this gear. We've put on here a new amplifier. I've got a two-way crossover separating frequencies to appropriate speakers. We have a digital reverb unit, and the box there that has the light on it that looks like a flux capacitor is a Leslie simulator that's handling the tremolo for the main and solo channels on the instrument, and then the Leslie speaker handles the tremolo for the tibia channel. I am starting to make some music on this instrument, and so I'll be doing some performance videos of me playing this at some point in the near future. Now perhaps the centerpiece of the studio right now is this, my 4-manual Johannes instrument. This was a custom build back in 1997 that Johannes put together for the 1997 NAMM show, and it's kind of interesting. I acquired this actually for free. I just had to get a couple $100 together for gas to go pick it up, which was quite the job since this thing is so huge. This, of course, Johannes is a company in the Netherlands. This is supposed to be an American classic organ, but it's, when you look at the stop list, if you know about different organ designs around the world, it's really more of a European imagining of what an American classic organ would be. It does have the classic sounds, the usual stops that you would find on an American classic organ. They're not exactly laid out on the stop rail exactly the way they would be. One of the interesting things is our choir division really has only a principal chorus and a bunch of reeds. And that's cool, but where's the flute chorus? Well, that's over on the solo division, which has basically nothing but flutes and then a bunch of reeds. And so, well, if we couple the solo to the choir, then we get a more complete, proper American sounding choir division. The great division, which is here, is fairly well thought out. That's pretty typical. That looks pretty normal for what we would have on a great division. The swell, again, a little odd because there's no 4-foot principal, which in American classic organ design The 4-foot principle should be the dominant principle in the swell division, but it's just a 2-foot principle. And then the pedal is pretty normal. It's pretty well thought out, and bottom line is it's still a great sounding organ, and it's a lot of fun to play. And I certainly have enjoyed having it here, and it's done a great job for some of my music performance videos. And once you get the hang of working around kind of the quirkiness of the stop list and how that goes together, it pretty much is, a pretty good sounding American classic style organ. When I patch that directly into my recording equipment and I edit it on the computer, that just sounds like $1,000,000, which let's throw up a performance video right now and let you hear it. So I am very excited about the upcoming planetarium shows and all of the preparation that goes into that. And I'm hoping that maybe some of the revenue I bring in from those performances can go into finishing off my studio space here. The porta organ setup, which I've talked about before, right now it's a MIDI controller keyboard that runs software on the computer, and then it's a single manual, the upper keyboard is a single manual organ. I really need two of those single manual organs, and I have a line on one. I can get a really sweet deal on a decibel instrument that's almost identical to that, so I have the two keyboards. There's other equipment that I have to get into to really make the setup work so that I can play all of my original music live. But this is my studio as it exists today. It's a work in progress. I have been really blessed to acquire interesting instruments that have been gifted to me so that I can have all of this musical variety in here, and to be able to set up cameras and record in here and do my videos on all this gear. The Hammond organ will be a really fun thing to add to the mix. I think after I get the porta organ all set up and I know I'm ready to go for the planetarium shows and other performances of my original music, I'll be able to get back onto the Franken organ and fix it up, because that will be more for my for my lecture recitals, and more of a proper instrument for that. And all of this comes about because I'm in the organ business and I hang around with organ people, and so that's how I became Tony I, the organ guy. So I'm very excited about the prospect of getting to tour my original music a little bit. The first thing that has to happen is I've got to get the album formally released. I finally got the proper federal copyright on everything, and now I got to get other paperwork type things straightened out so that I'm protected as the music gets distributed publicly and more widely. I don't suspect that anybody's going to be, busy to steal my music, but, hey, you never know. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's little visit to my studio. We'll see you next time.